Hello and welcome to an all-new Shooty and the Catfish devlog, and in fact, the second last Shooty and the Catfish devlog. If you're new here, Shooty and the Catfish is a turn-based comedy RPG being made in RPG Maker MV, and it has a very heavy emphasis on resource management. This episode is all about getting episodes 4 and 5 bug-free and balanced, and getting the game into beta. So let's get into it. To start things off this morning, I actually worked on the structure for my next RPG, Stripe the Last Tiger. Keyword here being next RPG, not next game. While Stripe the Last Tiger will be much smaller than Shooty and the Catfish, I want to make something tiny to reset my brain first. I then followed that up with a playthrough of Shooty and the Catfish episode 4. Surprisingly, it wasn't as broken as the first 3 episodes. The list here is pretty short and shouldn't take me more than an afternoon. Let's start with the opening sequence, where a conversation between Shooty and Zaat covers the characters. I also need to fix up the bin, which doesn't display properly. Next up are some fixes in the episode's town flatwoods. There's a lot of text that's not displaying, or displaying in the wrong place. Nothing tricky, but a little bit time consuming. Even the dungeon fixes are pretty straightforward. I just need to set up some of the trees so you can walk behind them. I need to fix up this kitchen bench in the boss room, and rebalance a handful of skills and ammunition prices. Lastly, the episode needs a title and an end card, and that means it needs a title. So, how about Space Swamp? Since it's about aliens occupying a swamp area. Well, partly anyway. That's going to be it for today. Next chance I get, I'm going to move on to episode 5, which I know still has a bit of work left to be done. Good morning, it is Wednesday, it has been a whole week, and after putting a couple of hours into Code Vein this morning, I am ready to start tackling episode 5. Episode 5 is a little bit different to the previous 4 episodes in that it's basically 2 dungeons back to back, as well as a linear intro and outro sequence, as opposed to a town. In fact, the intro sequence will feel very familiar to anybody who played the original 2018 demo. Despite how short this section is, I still managed to find quite a few issues. More than I expected. Nothing overly difficult, just some silly oversights. Let's start with all these transfer events that I copied from another part of the project, along with some shadow fixes. Now all that's left to do is to make this episode's title card, Shooty and the Catfish. That's going to be it for today. I'm expecting this week to be pretty big, but fingers crossed I get more time to dedicate to development. It is late Sunday afternoon, and I have just attempted to play through the next section of Shooty and the Catfish, but it's too broken to complete it. I wouldn't say the list I have here is particularly any longer than most, but the issues here are certainly more severe. I think the first port of call should be the easy stuff, like cleaning up some misplaced tiles. Overall, I'm really happy with the look of this dungeon, but it's got some very weird visual bugs. Next up, we have some audio bugs. That's not really something I've had to deal with much over the development of the project, but here we are. All of the transfers are missing an indicator sound, and there's a droning sound in the last zone, and it's not going away. I also have to set the correct combat music for the dungeon because it's still set to the last boss encounter's music. There are also a lot of broken events. There's gates opening when you need a key, the boss door is open before you pull a switch to unlock it, and some environments you can't pass through, among some other things. The worst is this game-breaking bug that requires a restart. This NPC gets caught on Shooty while he's leaving, and that puts the game in a loop. I'm gonna be lazy and fix it by having an extra map tile so the characters can just step back further. Laziest fix in the world. Lastly today, I need to rebalance the enemies for this dungeon, because they still have the same stats as they did back in the 2018 demo when this dungeon was actually the start of the game. Thankfully, that's a relatively quick task though. That's it for today. I have a huge day coming up tomorrow, but here's hoping I can fit the next dungeon in during the afternoon. It has been 2 full weeks since I've been able to sit down and touch this game. That said, I am touching it now, and the next section of New Folk Castle has a lot of work that needs doing. Yes, indeed, quite the list given how short this section is. First of all, none of the transfers in this part of the dungeon have sound effects. That's an easy fix to be sure, but a time-consuming one given the number of events. The background ambient sounds from the previous parts of the dungeon are also not stopping. Second, we have some visual issues. The wrong tile here and there, one enemy sprite randomly changes when you enter combat, and there's some wonky dialogue. It's all easy stuff to fix though. Lastly, the enemies are in bad need of some health buffs, so let's pump up the HP on these guys a bit, the heavies in particular. And sadly, that's going to be it for this episode. I'm going to be finishing the game off camera, and I hope you don't mind. That said, the next episode will be the final in this series, and it will detail the trailer, the game pages setup, and the game's release. So I'll hope you all join me for that. Until then, stay safe and happy developing. And don't forget, you can check out my Patreon for access to all my source files. Peace out, and have a good one.